It's a little early to start a Hanukkah mimer, but
Let's do it.
Yeah, maybe we'll do two. I don't know. We'll see. It's just an amazing mimer. It's about Hanukkah, but it's also just about Torah, mitzvahs, God. Things that hopefully we like to think about now and then. Okay. This is a mimer, as you can see, was said in Tafshin Lamed Ches, which means it was said after the whole story of Rosh Chodesh Kislev, after the heart attack, and then the whole story of Rosh Chodesh Kislev. So this was said 3 weeks later. It came out as a Maluka Dika mimer, as you see on the front page. It was Chanukah Tafshin Mem Zayin. That's when we got the mimer as an edited mimer, which means it's actually in the same volume of Pod B'Shalom that we just learned. It's in volume 2 of Maimarim Melukotin, of the collected Maimarim. So this was edited in 1986. Mem Zayin, which was turning into 87 very soon, was Shabbos Chanukah. And there are 5 questions that the Rebbe asks at the beginning of the mimer that we're going to have to remember. The Rebbe is going to answer them one by one. A couple will be answered right away, and then it'll take most of the mimer to answer the rest of them. Tanu Rabanan. The Rebbe quotes the Gemara in Shabbos, which is the Gemara that discusses Hanukkah. In the middle of the second parak of Shabbos. Second parak of Shabbos is called B'mem Madlikin. And what do you light? What do we light? Ashkenazim actually say that parak in between Mincha and Mariv in davening Friday night, right? So when we're saying Kegavna, they're saying B'meh Madlikin. They quote why? Because it's about the laws of lighting Shabbos lights. What oils are okay and what oils aren't okay, and what wicks are okay and what wicks aren't okay. Right, so in the context of that, lighting candles for Shabbos, the Gemara decided it was a reasonable thing to discuss the laws of Chanukah. So that's there. And it quotes a Baraisa. Tanu Rabban. The Baraisa that says, Mitzvahs Ner Chanukah, etc. So now what does the Baraisa say? It's just important to know. It says, Mitzvah Ner Chanukah, the base of Mitzvah Ner Chanukah is Ner Echad, is one candle. Ner Ish Ubeisai. One candle for a house every night. First night, you light one. Second night, you light one. Third night, you light one. Right? One candle every night. That's the basic mitzvah of Chanukah. Hamahadrin, people who are extra careful about mitzvahs, right? Either they beautify mitzvahs or they run after mitzvahs. 2 different pshatim in the word mahader, Machlokes Rashi and the Rambam as to what it means. Right. So either they run after mitzvahs, they look to do mitzvahs, or they beautify mitzvahs. So those mitzvahs is ner lekol echad ve'echad, one candle for everybody in the house. So if there's 5 people in the house, every night you light 5 candles. That's mahadran. Mahadran mina mahadran, the best possible way of doing it is what we'll see. Right. Relative to that, there's a machlekes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. What's the best way to light? That's mahadran mina mahadran, the best possible way. Beis Shammai Emrim Yom Rishon. Beis Shammai says the first day, madlik shmoni, you light 8. Mikan veilach, and from on peches v'heilach, you diminish. 8, then 7, then 6, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2, and on the 8th night of Hanukkah you're lighting 1. There's only 1 day of Hanukkah left. So Beis Shammai, the Rebbe explains in different sichos in different places, Beis Shammai looks at reality from the point of Shemayim, where the potential has already been actualized, and so you start with 8. What do you know? You know there's going to be 8 days of miracles. So you say, there's 8 days left, 7 days left, 6 days left, 5 days left, a miracle. That's Beis Shammai. Beis Hillel, Emrim, you can imagine what they say because this is what we do. Emrim, Yerishan Madlik Achas, the first day you light 1, Mikan Veilach, Meisef Veilach, and from here on we add 1 and then 2 and then 3 until the 8th day we light 8. Because each day we're celebrating, a miracle. Wow, 2 days of miracle. Well, amazing, 3 days of miracle until the 8th day. Okay, so that's the machlokes Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel. Obviously, we pass them like Beis Hillel. There's a machlokes Rishonim exactly. If if you think about it in terms of the Gemara is not in front of you, so it's hard to think about it that way. But the first position, the basic din of Hanukkah is to light a candle every night. Okay, that means, why is that important to know? Well, that's important to know that if you're stuck somewhere and you don't have 4 candles and it's the 4th night, how are you makayim the mitzvah? Light a candle. Perfectly good performance of the mitzvah of Ner Hanukkah. That's the basic mitzvah. Now, interesting enough, we'll see in the Mimer why this is. The Rebbe's not going to talk about it directly, but it will come up and we'll understand it, why it is that the basic mitzvah of Hanukkah is now to do it mahadran min mahadran, the best possible way. It's the only din in Shulchan Aruch where the mahadran min mahadran way of doing the mitzvah is written as the basic way of doing the mitzvah. Right? What does everybody do? Mahadran min mahadran. Matter of fact, you probably didn't even know there was another way of doing it. Right? Right? Most people don't even, people who learn Torah in their life do. You guys were just starting this, so now you know, right? So, right? But once you start learning Torah, so then you realize, oh, that's interesting. Hanukkah is this absolutely unique halacha. Everybody does it mahadran min mahadran, and we'll see. Even the people who are lighting a Chanukah on a table where next to the Chanukah is treif food, right? Which is most of the Chanukiot in America, because interesting enough, most people still light a Chanukah menorah, right? And next to it will be Wonder Bread, and who knows, Oscar Mayer wieners. There could be all sorts of stuff there, right? And yet, interesting enough, how are they performing the mitzvah of Hanukkah? Mahadran min mahadran, the best way possible. So interesting. Well, once we see what Hanukkah is about, it's just fascinating how Chanukah is that.
It is interesting.
So Rabbi,
What?
and Mahadran is the one uniting first one day, second or two.
Well, that's Beis Shammai Beis Hillel. It's a machlekes, 8 to 1 or 1 to 8. That's the machlekes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. Now there's another machlekes Rishonim. It's on the page. It's Rashi and Tosfos, right? And it's an interesting machlekes. The first position is 1 per house. Also, there's also a synopsis of Pada B'Shalom, which we just finished, which is right behind that hat. There we go, right. Okay? The first position is 1 candle per house per night. That's the basic mitzvah. The next is everybody lights 1 per night. The third is 8 to 1 or 1 to 8. And there's machlekes Rishonim. Is mahadran min mahadran a step up from mahadran, meaning everybody lights 1 to 8, or is it 2 steps from the basic mitzvah, skipping the middle step, meaning 1 menorah in the house, but 1 through 8, right? Because if you think about it schematically, so the first, I'm going to start from the bottom up. The first way is 1 candle for everybody. One candle. The second is 1 for everybody in the house. Okay, so now, let's go to the 4th night. So according to Beis Hillel, the 4th night, so you'll light 4 candles. Okay, is that everybody lighting 4 candles? So this is the basic position. This is Mahadran. And Mahadran, min Mahadran is doing Mahadran even better, that everybody lights 4 candles. Or is Mahadran min Mahadran just directly from the basic mitzvah? 1 for the whole house. Mahadran min Mahadran is 4 candles for the whole house. The 4th night, 5 candles the next night. So, okay, and that's machlekes Rishonim. And that's machlekes Ashkenazim and Sephardim. So when Rabbi Kaplan gets to Hilchos Hanukkah, you'll discuss that. Okay, Seder. Tosfos holds that it's 1 menorah for the house. 1, 2, 3, 4. Why? Well, the whole and it makes perfect sense. The whole inyan of lighting Hanukkah candles is Pirsuma Nisa, is to publicize the miracle. So this Tosfos position. There are other positions. The publicity of the miracle is best if you have 1 Chanukah in the window that has 5 candles. Then everybody will know it's the 5th night. Let's take 6 candles. You have 6 candles, so everybody will know it's the 6th night. Now, according to the other position, it could be 3 people lighting on the 2nd night. It could be 2 people lighting on the 3rd night. It could be 6 people lighting on the 1st night, right? Because you see 6 candles. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so that's Tosfos' position as to why it's best to go, I erased it, straight from the basic halacha all the way up to Mahadran Min Mahadran, and it's not that it's a step-by-step process. Mahadran Min Mahadran is one menorah for everybody in the house. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or obviously like Beis Shammai. Now we paskin like Beis Hillel, obviously, as we always do. Though there is an idea that Yemei Mashiach will paskin like Beis Shammai. Remember, I can't say it's a fond memory, but it's over now, so it can be a fond memory. 16 years ago, so I went through a rather interesting medical experience. And part of the medical experience was that I spent about 3 weeks with 8 tubes coming out of me. And then at the end of the process, having spent about a month in hospitals, at the end of the process, they started taking away the tubes. And when did they start taking away the tubes? During basically Chanukah. I was there from the 10th of Kislev until Hey Davis. So I was there pretty auspicious dates. So they started taking out the tubes Chanukah. So I was explaining to the doctors that we were paskening like Beis Shammai, and we were going from 8 to 1. And by the end, I had 1 or 2 left. And then when I left the hospital, so they got a lesson in Chanukah due to my tubes. Chaim.
Amen.
We had a wonderful Yudtes Kislev for breaking in my little tent. In those days, there were 5 people in a room with curtains. Now it's much fancier. They built a whole new hospital. But so two Bachrim from Mayanot came with a bottle of mashka, which obviously I was not allowed to have anything to do with at that point. But I touched it to my lips. They came with a bottle of Smirnoffs, and we made a Yudtes Kislev for bringing in the thing. And one of the doctors walked in, who was not my doctor in any way, shape, or form, but he went to medical school with my wife. So he was popping in now and then. Wonderful guy. He was the head of pediatric surgery, named Chezi Landau. Wonderful guy, just warm, sweet Jew. Not what they call religious. Right, so Chezi came in and the boys said, "Doctor, it's Yudtes Kislev, you should say L'chaim." So Chezi said, "I'm a misnagid." So they looked at me here as misnagid. You have to be frum to be a misnagid, don't you? What does that mean? You're a misnagid. So he was talking to me. He said, "What's my name?" So his name is Chezi Landau, but Chezi, of course, is short for Yechezkel. Yechezkel Landau. Yechezkel Landau is the Noida B'Yehuda, one of the most famous Achronim in Europe, one of the biggest Rabanan in all of the history of Europe, of the Achronim. After the Rishonim, after Shulchan Aruch, until the Second World War, one of the 5 or 6 most famous Litvische Achronim in Europe. It's called the Noida B'Yehuda, the one who's known in Yehuda. That was the name of his sefer. He wrote a very sophisticated Parish on Gemara. And his name was Yechezkel Landau. And Chezi is Ben Acher Ben. He's named for it. He's a great grandson, but father to son, to son to son to son. And so he said, I said, "Whoa, you're really a misnagid." He said, "Yeah, I'm the real thing." Gesha. Sweetest guy, such a wonderful guy. He used to come in now and then just to see how I'm doing in my little tent over there. That was our Yudtes Kislev for bringing. So we paskin like Beis Shammai, that it was a taste of Mashiach. So the Gemara says Beis Shammai, Beis Hillel have this machlekes. Mahadran Min Mahadran is it 1 through 8 or 8 through 1? Beis Shammai says 8 through 1. Beis Hillel says 1 through 8. Okay, manyen. So then the Gemara gives 2 reasons for each, right? So our Gemara just brings 1. This is the one that's going to be our mimer just brings 1. Time at a Beis Shammai. What's the reason for Beis Shammai? Keneged Parei Achag, corresponding to the bulls of Sukkot. Bulls, a par is a bull on Sukkot. We used to bring a lot of korbanos on Sukkot, and every day in Musaf you mention those korbanos. And one of the things you mention in Sukkot is korbanos that are brought The first day of Sukkot we bring 13, the second day 12, the third day 11, the fourth day 10, the fifth day 9, the sixth day 8, and the seventh day 7, which turns out to be Sachakol 70 bulls. Those bulls represent the 70 nations of the world, right? And so they diminish in number. So Beis Shammai says, just like the bulls on Sukkot, I think they're translated usually bullocks. I don't know why bullocks, but whatever. The bullocks on Sukkot decrease in number, so too the candles on Chanukah decrease in number. That's what Beis Shammai says. That's how we learn to go 8 to 1. The time of the Beis Hillel, and Beis Hillel counters that and says, the Mailin B'Kodesh, that in matters of holiness we go up. Mailin, we go up B'Kodesh in matters of holiness. Mailin B'Kodesh. That's Beis Hillel. That's the Machlekes. The other reason is that it corresponds to the day coming in, the days going out. This is the reason that is going to be discussed in the Maimon. Okay, so again, 2 reasons. Beis Shammai says that we learn how to light. Now, obviously, this is something we're going to question. Why in the world is what happens in Sukkot in the base of Mikdash going to be the prototype for how we light Chanukah licht? They're 2 completely different worlds. But okay, that being said, we light the Chanukah licht corresponding to what we learned from the bulls on Sukkot. We diminish from more to less. That's what Beis Shammai says. Beis Hillel says no, in matters of holiness you have to go up. So we start from 1 and we go up to 8. Seder? Very simple, basic machlekes.
Is he saying that the bulls aren't a matter of holiness?
No, they're holy, but in generally there's a rule. There's a rule is that if we can, we go up. Now we're going to see that Beis Hillel seems to ultimately agree with Beis Shammai that it would be reasonable to learn from the bulls on Sukkot, except we have another overriding principle that we go up, not down. The reason we're going down with the bulls is, and this has to do with what you just asked, Mike. So the reason that which is usually explained. The reason we go down with the bulls is because God said go down with the bulls, right? But the reason that is usually given to explain that is, what do these bullocks represent? The nations of the world. So on one hand, the nations of the world are part of and very much involved in what's going on in the base of Mikdash, bringing korbanos. And that was when nations of the world would come with their korbanos to bring just bring their own korbanos, bring their own sacrifices to the temple, because they wanted to do that because the Jews had something going. But we would also bring korbanos corresponding to the 70 nations of the world. So mitzad echad, they're part of the Aved in the base of Mikdash. Mitzad sheni, we decrease in number in order that the power of the Umas Ha'olam over us should decrease. Right? So they're there, but they're decreasing. Right? So there's that dichotomy. Right? And that's actually how it's explained. I think it's actually a medrash that explains it that way. So it's mamish, part of Torah. Okay. So now, interesting diukim in this machlekes. V'yadua. Diuk kfeit kedushas admar azokim. The diuk, the careful reading of Kfeit Kedushas. Kfeit Kedushas is the way we introduce Rebbeim, the holy, the honored and holy one, Admor. Admor means Adonenu, Moreinu, V'Rabbeinu, right? That's the word for Rebbe. Hazoken, the Alter Rebbe, right? The Balatanya. It's known, the careful reading of the Balatanya. Ma inyan ner Chanukah l'parei chag. What is the connection? What is this? Literally, Indian means matter. But what in the world is the connection of Ner Chanukah, lighting Chanukah candles, to Parei Achal, to a bunch of bulls on the Mizbeach on Sukkot? Right? So that's question 1. There's going to be 5 questions in this paragraph, and you have to know them all. And tomorrow I'm going to ask you what they are. Ubefrat, particularly, why is this an important question? Because after all, what could I say to you? Well, that's only the position of Beis Shammai, and we don't paskin like Beis Shammai anyway, so then why are you asking questions in the position of Beis Shammai? We go 1 to 8, so for us it's irrelevant. No, it's not irrelevant, and the Tzemach Tzedek points that out. Right? The third Rebbe, the son-in-law of the second Rebbe, the Mittler Rebbe, but who also happens to be the grandson of the Alter Rebbe, because the Alter Rebbe's daughter, Devorah Leah, that's why there's a lot of Devorah Leahs in Lubavitch. The Alter Rebbe's daughter, Devorah Leah, gave up her life for her father. She heard her father talking to Hasidim Erev Rosh Hashanah that he was not going to be written into the book of life that year, and that they should prepare to take things into their own hands. And she heard that. She went to her father and said that she is not going to let that happen, and she's going to pass away instead of her father, and she passed away on Sem Gedalia. Her father lived many more years. So that's Devorah Leah. Now the Alter Rebbe only accepted that when the husband agreed, with Shalom Sachna. So the Alter Rebbe brought in his son-in-law, Rav Shalom Sachna, and said, do you agree to this? So he said, what's going to be with the boy? The boy was the Tzemach Tzedek, who was about 2 or 3 years old at that point. What's going to be with him? So the Alter Rebbe said, I will take care of him. And the Tzemach Tzedek actually lived in the womb with the Alter Rebbe when he was a little boy. Right? He was the shadow of the Alter Rebbe. And so that's the Tzemach Tzedek is brought here also. So the Tzemach Tzedek was the son-in-law of the Mittler Rebbe, his uncle, and the grandson of the Alter Rebbe. That's why the Mittler Rebbe is called the Mittler Rebbe, because it was known that the Tzemach Tzedek is going to be the Rebbe after the Alter Rebbe, but he was young, and the Rebbe in the middle, in between those two, is the Rebbe of Dov Ber, the Rebbe Ha'em Tzoi, the Mittler Rebbe is called. So the Alter Rebbe asks, what's the inyan of Ner Chanukah L'Parei Chag? Now, of course, that's a question only relative to Beis Shammai, but once we see the Tzemach Tzedek, we'll understand why that question is a question that's also relevant to us. Ubefrat, particularly, this question is an important question. L'fi ma shekosav krei kedushat Tzemach Tzedek, that which the Tzemach Tzedek said. Shegam Beis Hillel, also Beis Hillel, loy pligi, doesn't argue with Beis Shammai, rak, except for Mishum D'Maylim B'Kodesh. In other words, Beis Hillel really does think that it's true you should learn how to light Chanukah licht from what went on in the Mizbeach in Sukkot with these male cows. That's true, except there's an overriding principle, and that overriding principle is go up in Kedusha, don't go down. So therefore we go 1 to 8. But really, I agree with you, we should go 8 to 1, if it weren't for the idea that in Kedusha we have to go from less to more. We add in Kedusha, we don't subtract. Okay, so therefore we go 1 to 8. So then the question is relevant to us also, because there is evidently a connection between Chanukah Licht and what went on in the Mizbeach and Sukkot, the altar in Sukkot, but what in the world is the connection? Right? They both happened in the Beis HaMikdash, that's true, but in different parts. And that which is explained in a number of places, meaning one of the reasons given that we somehow compare Sukkot to Chanukah, that was question 1. Why do we learn Sukkot from Chanukah? That was question 1, and Chanukah from Sukkot. That was our first question. Now we're going to ask a second question. After we give an answer to the first question, we're going to question that answer. Umashim avur b'kama mekaymes, and that which is explained in a number of places. Why is it that Chanukah and Sukkot have something to do with each other? The Chanukah, the shaychus, the relevance of Chanukah to Sukkot, he is sheshneim him shmeida yomim. They're both 8 days long. Now Sukkot is 7, but it has an 8th day, Shmini Atzeres. All right, so they're both 8-day holidays. Chanukah is an 8-day holiday. Well, Chanukah is an 8-day holiday because. Why is Chanukah an 8-day holiday?
Candles burn for 8 days.
Okay.
Which is enough for the new oil to come.
Beautiful. So it should be a 7-day holiday. The first day wasn't miraculous. The first day was natural. There was enough oil for the first day. So why are we celebrating 8 days? We should celebrate 7 days of miracle. Right? True?
Isn't it a miracle that they found the oil in the
So you're answering my question. Doesn't dismiss the question. You're giving one of the 3 answers. That's a good answer, what you just said. But it's one of the 3 answers given by Rishonim to the question. And the question is that everybody asks, wait a minute, why are we celebrating a miracle for 8 days? There was not a miracle for 8 days. There was a miracle for 7 days. There was enough oil for the first day. That's why we have Rishonim, because they always ask good questions. Right? Okay. So, 3 answers. The Rambam says that the 8-day holiday is the first day we celebrate the victory in the war, which was miraculous. right? A small little family defeated the biggest army in the world. Okay, that's the Rambam. The Meiri. The Meiri says what Noach said, that the miracle of finding the oil, which we'll talk about here, was we found that pot of oil, that teeny little flask of oil that was hidden away. Now, how big was that teeny little flask of oil that we found? Right, that big? Right, think about it. What did we do with that flask of oil? Say it. What did we do the first day? We filled up 7, there's only 7 in the menorah, right? Not 8 in the Mesa Mikdash. We filled up 7 bulbs of the menorah. How long did the menorah burn? All night, right? It burned from 3:15 in the afternoon until the next morning. Each bulb was about this big. How big was the flask of oil that we found? Right, exactly. That's enough to fill up 7 of these? Obviously not. So what did we find? We found a barrel, something this big. We didn't find some little flask of oil stuck in between a crack. We found something this big. So how'd the Greeks miss it? Okay, we'll figure that out.
How about the amount of oil for the latkes?
Well, when you show up late, you're not allowed to tell any jokes.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Practically speaking, when they were breaking or just desanctifying all the oil, there's just so much probably there that they just like.
We'll see what that was about later. Good question. Why were they doing that? We'll see that later. Why dafka oil? Why dafka?
When they were desanctifying it, there was just probably so much oil that one flask they probably just let go. Like they thought they desanctified it.
Well, I don't know. Greeks seem to be pretty good at things, right? I mean that's an interesting answer, but I would imagine there's probably something a little more profound as to why it is that there was a miracle to find one flask, right? I mean, if it was out there and so easily found, then they could have seen it also. But whatever, we'll see. There's the Meiri explains that the miracle is finding the oil. The Ritva has a whole different take on it all. The Ritva said that since they knew that they only had one flask of oil, and they knew that it was going to have to last 8 days because it was going to take them some time to be able to press the new oil, etc., etc. So the Ritva says they only put 1/8 of the amount of oil into the menorah every night, so that they would be lighting the menorah ceremoniously every night, but not really doing the mitzvahs that's supposed to be done because you're supposed to fill it up. And miraculously, that 1/8 of the oil burned all night, every night. So there were 8 nights of miracle with the oil, right? Because they only put in 1/8 and it burnt as if they had filled it up every night. So there were 8 nights of miracle with the oil, according to the Ritva. That's the Ritva's pshat. 3 different pshatim as to why it's an 8-day holiday, right? Because really the miracle with the oil was only 7. Again, the Rambam says the war. The Meiri says finding the oil. These are all Rishonim. And the Ritva says 8 days of they put in 1/8 of the oil for 8 days.
Why for 8 days? What was their?
They understood it was going to take 8 days to get oil that was tahor.
They made a heshbon.
Yeah, so that's how long it took tahor. So they evidently knew that, and so that's why they did 8 days. There's an amazing sikha the Rebbe, I think in Chelik Lamed of Likutei Sikhas, I don't remember exactly where it is. We'll have to find it. Where the Rebbe actually explains a 4th way that was really quite astounding. They filled it up every night, and it burned, but it didn't burn, and so there was a full candle the next night to light, even though they had lit it and it burned all night, but it didn't burn. So similar to the Aron Enamid Amida, that the Aron took up space but didn't take up space. Right? The Aron was in the middle of the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So the Kodesh HaKadoshim in the Mishkan was 10 amos wide. The Mikdash was 20, but the Mishkan was 10 amos wide. And the Aron was in the middle, and the Aron was 1.5 wide, 2.5 long, and 1.5 high amos. Right? That's the space it took up. 1.5 by 2.5 by 1.5. And it had to be exactly that space. If it was anything different, it wasn't the Aron. Okay, and that aron was placed in the middle of the Kodesh HaKadoshim, of the Holy of Holies. Okay, if you measured from the wall of the Kodesh HaKadoshim to the middle of the room, of course it was 5 and 5. If you measured from the side of the aron to the wall, it was 5 and 5. Even though the aron was there, taking up space, but it didn't take up space.
Pocket
One,
dimension.
what?
A pocket dimension.
Excuse me?
A pocket dimension.
Okay, a pocket dimension. I don't know what that means, but I assume you do, and it's probably very deep and profound, and I'm going to repeat it now all the time as if I also know what it means, and people will probably think that I'm also deep and profound, right? So the Aaron ain't. This is one of the miracles that's written in the Mishnah. Aaron ain't a meter. It wasn't part of the space. I mean, it didn't take up space. It did take up space, but it didn't take up space. Which is really a miracle that's greater than any miracle imaginable, because here it is in Gashmis. If you walked into it, you'd get a bruise, but it didn't take up any space. But it had to be exactly the right dimensions in space in order not to take up space. If it had slightly different dimensions, it would have taken up space because it wouldn't have been the Aron. So it had to be exactly 1.5 by 1.5 by 2.5. So similarly, the Rebbe says the oil burnt but didn't burn every single night. Right? Rebbe explain. It has issues with everybody else's pshatim and whatever. It's an amazing sikha, absolutely amazing sikha.
This sikha or another one that he...
No, this is a maimer. No, it's another sikha. I don't remember exactly where it is. It's in Likutei Sichos. I think it's Chelik Lamed, but I'm not going to put my house up for collateral on that. I don't remember. I'll look it up. I don't think actually. I think not, because I think it's originally in Yiddish, meaning it was printed. It was said, everything was said in Yiddish, but most sikhs also originally printed in Yiddish. But Lamed through the end are printed originally in Lashon HaKodesh. So I don't think it's that type. I think it is actually printed in. It's also printed in Lashon HaKodesh because everything's been translated. But I think it was originally Yiddish. I don't know. Remember, I'll find it. I'll find it by one of those things that's good for us people who don't know very much. You find one of those books that has all the Likutei Sichos of one part of Likutei Sichos in one volume. You look in the index and you find them.
Oh, yeah.
You have to look through 8 different volumes. There's one volume, so I'll find it. And then I'll probably won't, because I'll forget to look and then I'll forget to tell you guys. But, if we can overcome that, I'll find it. Okay, so they're both 8 days. Okay, so Hanukkah is 8 days. Now Hanukkah is 8 days, but it's interesting. We took a bit of a detour to discuss the 8 days of Hanukkah, because the 8 days of Hanukkah is a fascinating discussion amongst Rishonim as to why it's 8 days. Okay, but it is 8 days. There's no doubt about that. No one disputes that. It's an 8-day holiday. And you notice Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel, they didn't dispute how many days you light. They just disputed whether you start with 8 and go to 1, or you start with 1 and go to 8. But everybody agrees it's an 8-day holiday. So too Sukkot is an 8-day holiday. And what's 8? The Mispar Shmeina, the number 8, 6th line down, the end of the line. Murder instructs Al Bechina, a quality. Shelamayla Mishtalshalis is beyond the natural order. The word Ishtalshalis literally means the orderly downward chain-like descent of godliness, of godly light. A shalshelet is a chain, so the orderly downward emanation of light. But when we say Seder Ishtalshalis, we also mean the natural order. That's beyond the natural order. 8. The natural order is, of course, 7. And the beyond that is 8. That's why a bris is on the 8th day. Hare. Okay, that's very, very nice, is the second question. That's very nice that the reason that we learned something about Chanukah from Sukkot, which was our first question, is because they're both 8. And here you see what separates, and I don't mean in a better way, just the difference between Chabad Chassidus and all other Chassidus. Everywhere else in Chassidus, what will you find? Why is Hanukkah an 8-day holiday, and why is Hanukkah compared to Sukkot? Because they're both 8-day holidays. And 8 is L'mayla min hateva, so Hanukkah is beyond nature. This question that's asked next is a question that you'll find only in Chabad Chassidus, and that's why our Chassidus is 8 pages long and not 4 lines. Because seriously, what I just said is 4 lines long, right? And when people first start learning Chabad Chassidus, they get very depressed because all they want from their Chassidus is a nice little thing to say at the Shabbos table, and they have to learn 8 pages to say it. And I'm not going to do that. I'll open up a Sfas Emes and I'll see it all in little tamtzit. It'll be in 6 lines. And the Sfas Emes is the Alter Rebbe on Torah, from Torah or in the Kutei Torah in 8 lines. Right? He said he's basing much of his Torah on the Alter Rebbe, the Sfas Emes, the Ger Rebbe. But it's it's short. That's why, in other words, in order to really understand what the Sfas Emes is saying, you have to have learned a 4-column mimer of the Alter Rebbe. Right, which is why Ger Chassidim on the Sfas Emes' Yort site, Hey Shvat, when they learn Sfas Emes all the time, but they'll sit and learn. They'll often knock on the door of their Lubavitch neighbor and say, "Can you learn a Sfas Emes with me? There's something I don't understand. I assume it's based on the Alter Rebbe."
Wow.
It happens. It's happened to me a number of times. The Ger Chassidim in the neighborhood call up and say, "It's pshat in the Sfas Emes, Kafka Hey Shvat." They learned all the time, but Hey Shvat. I always say L'chaim on Hey Shvat because my wife's great-grandparents were not of child. They went to the Sfas, they were Ger Chassidim, they went to the Sfas Emes for a bracha. The Sfas Emes told the great-grandfather, Ben Sion something was his name, a Kohen, told him to add the name Alter to his first name. Alter Ben Sion something, I don't remember actually. So he added that Alter is the family name of the Ger Rebbe, right? So he added the name Alter, and they had 4 children. The first of which was my wife's grandfather.
Wow.
So I'd be one of those guys, with yellow shirts and yellow teeth, and unmarried in mid-60s, walking around still davening without a tallis, putting on. I'd be one of those guys with a yellow shirt, But Sfas Emes, made me a wife somehow along the way. So there you go, Baruch Hashem. If it weren't for that bracha, where would I be?
You know why they have yellow shirts?
What?
They can match their white, yellow teeth.
I know, but they have no wife washing their
And they
shirts.
could have put
That's
on a
why.
brown tie,
They
too.
wash them and they forget to put in the powder. You have to put in after you put in the tie, you have to put in the next thing, the oxo. Without the oxo, it's not. So now I know that. Why do I know that? Because my wife told me to do that, right? You know the famous story in Shemayim up there in Gan Eden. So there were 2 lines. One line was men who listened to everything their wife said. And there was a long line. And there was another line, men who did their own thing. There was like one guy standing there. He's just standing. He looks like a bit of a nebuch, So everybody in the other line is like, well, look at this. There's these big tough guys. How's he in that line where he didn't listen to his wife? And we're all in this line. So finally they had some time. They went over to and they asked him, said, let me ask you a question. We're all in that line of men who listened to everything their wife said. And you're here in this line of men who, did what they wanted to do. How did you make it into this line? He said, I don't know. My wife told me to stand here. So there you go. That's how it goes. Right? That's how you know. That's why they're not. That's why they're yellow. Because your wife tells you to put in the stuff. After you put in the detergent, take a thing of that and put it in there. That's right. And put it on cotton, and then press the on button.
There's a third line.
Oh no! What now?
It's not Mr.
It
A.
came late. I
It's
don't
not
think I
Mr.
should
A.
let it. But anyway.
It's not Mr. A. The third line is the line that the wife tells them what to do all the time. But they know that the wife's wrong, but they do it anyway.
I don't think the wife's wrong.
Well, I'm just saying.
Those wives
that
are-
those people are
I
not
don't
legal.
think wives. I don't think wives are ever wrong. I met your wife. She's never wrong.
That's true.
There you go. So you.
I'm talking about
It's
those
all
other.
conceptual. It's just conceptual. This
I'm
stuff
talking
about
about the
wives
other-
being wrong, right? It's
I'm just talking
conceptual.
about the other people.
The other people. Yes,
Not me.
wives being wrong.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So they're both 8 days, and 8 days is all about beyond nature. So the Rebbe says, "Hari said gufet tzarich bir." This itself requires explanation, which is the question you'll find in Chabad Chassidus. Mawa kesher? What's the connection of Sukkot and Chanukah to these two holidays, to a quality that's beyond the natural order. That as a result of this, okay, so the first question was, why are we comparing Chanukah to Sukkot? Now there's a theoretical answer to that question. Well, they're both 8 days. So then the Rebbe asked the second question, why are they both 8 days? What is it about these two holidays such that they're both l'mayla min hateva, they're beyond the natural order, which is 7. 7 days of the week, etc. Okay. V'gam, harezeh shetitnu neres Chanukah. That which they established, neres Chanukah. Again, Chanukah, of course, is an interesting holiday, right? It's not written in the Torah, so after the event, it was established by the Rabbanim of that day that we should celebrate this holiday every year, right? 2 holidays like that, Purim and Chanukah, where it was established by us that there should be such a holiday. The Yeshiva didn't write it in the Torah. So, that which they established Neres Chanukah, hu mipnei hanes shai b'neres hamikdash. That was because of the miracle that happened with the candles of the Mikdash. And the candles of the Mikdash, of course, were on a menorah. And the menorah had 7 branches, right? The menorah in the base of Mikdash had 7 branches. Umikeven sheba Mikdash hayu zayin neres. And since in the Mikdash there were 7 candles, Madua b'Chanukah yeshmena neres. Then why in Chanukah there's 8 candles and days? Okay, I understand that it was an 8-day miracle. But you and I have already discussed that it wasn't an 8-day miracle. Simple shot in the miracle is that it was a 7-day miracle. Now, there are explanations as to why we keep the 8th day. Okay, the Rambam says the war. The Meiri says finding the Pach Shemen. The Ritva says, interesting enough, the miracle itself with the oil was an 8-day miracle. Okay, that being said, simple shot, what should you do if you're celebrating a miracle that happened with a 7-branch menorah? What do you think you would do? Light a 7-branch menorah. And for how many days? Well, it's easy to light it for 7 days if we want. You don't need, I understand the Ritva said it happened the way it happened. But even according to the Ritva, you can say, okay, Beseder, yes, even that there was a miracle for 8 days, we still only do 7 days because it's the 7-branch menorah, and so we light for 7 days the 7-branch menorah, right? Even according to the Ritva, but certainly according to the other positions, right? Because the miracle with the Ner was only 7 days, according to both those explanations. The Rambam in question, what's the connection between Chanukah and Sukkot? Second question, why are they both 8 days? Third question, why are we celebrating a miracle with a 7-branch menorah with an 8-branch? Interestingly enough, in this country, it's not called a menorah. What's it called? Which is a Chanukah, which is a better description of it because it's shaykh to Chanukah. It's not a menorah. A menorah has 7. Now, a menorah is a lamp, right? So a menorah can have any branches, but the menorah in the base of Mikdash had 7. The Chanukah has 8. V'gam sarach lavin. We also have to understand Masha fergleich. The fergleich is the comparison. Hashavah. The Neres Chanukah, the comparison of Neres Chanukah to Sukkot, who loy lechaga Sukkot, bechlal, is not to the holiday of Sukkot in general, which is what we've been asking up until now. Ella, actually, leparei achag davka, to the bullocks that were brought on the Mizbeach specifically, right? It doesn't say that just like Sukkot is 8 days, Chanukah is 8 days. That's not what Beis Shammai said. Beis Shammai said that since the bullocks went from 13 to 7, so the Chanukah lich go from 8 to 1. That's what he learned. So it's specifically to the bullocks on the Mizbeach. And the Rebbe is going to ask about that. The L'cha'ura, at first glance, Hare, Neres Chanukah Shayachim L'menorah. Obviously, right? The Neres Chanukah are relevant to the menorah, which was one of the kelim in the Beis HaMikdash, one of the vessels in the Beis HaMikdash. Neres Chanukah mipnei hanes. The Neres Chanukah because of the miracle Shaya b'Neres menorah that happened with the candles of the menorah. Uparei achag, and the bulls that were brought on Sukkot, hikrivu, were sacrificed, kakol karbanos, like all karbanos, al gabe mizbeach, on the mizbeach, the altar, the outer altar. V'hari menorah u'mizbeach, Rebbe says, these two kelim, these two vessels that were in that house called first the Mishkan, then the Beis Hamikdash, him shnei kelim shenim. They're two completely different vessels. Ubefrat, the Rebbe mentions, lefishim hamavur b'kabbalas v'chasidus. Based on that which is explained in Pnimi Torah, and if you can look on the side, if you can see it, I don't know, I wrote it in pencil, so I would know, I remember this, right? That the menorah represents chesed, infinite revelation. The menorah sheds light from the Beis Hamikdash to the whole rest of the world. So the windows in the Beis Hamikdash were such that they weren't for bringing light from the outside and illuminating the inside, but they were all about bringing light from the inside and allowing that light to illuminate the outside. So the windows worked a different way. They went like that, right? So the light would go out as opposed to like that. So the light would come in and be spread out inside, right? So the menorah is the source of that light. And what's the Mizbeach? The Mizbeach is Malchus. What's Malchus? Malchus is imminent reality, right? What's Malchus? Well, to be perfectly honest, what was all over the base? What was the Mizbeach all about? Blood and bones and insides, and that was the Mizbeach. Knee deep in blood next to the Mizbeach, right? Every day they would wash out the whole areas, fill it up with water, with a plug, let the plug go, and it would all wash out into Nachal Kidron, right? It would all filthy with blood. Look how much blood there must have been around the Mizbeach, right? As they were shechting animals. Unbelievable. So especially Sukkot, right? The first day of Sukkot, they shecht 13 cows. Imagine how much blood there was with 13 cows. Right? I've never shechted a cow, but my nephew was learning shechita when he was in Australia for smicha. Did smicha in Australia and in Melbourne, and they learned that they went to learn how to shecht. I mean, they didn't really learn how to shecht, but they were learning shechita. So they went to they were taken to the where they shecht the animals, so they should see how it's done and what happens and how you check the knife. And so they were shechting chickens and they were watching. That's pretty easy. Everybody's seen that. We've all gone to Kaparas and watched them shecht the chicken. That's nothing. It's just a little gruesome, but I mean it's nothing too terrible. So then he said, "Okay, we're going to shecht a cow." So. Sheikhtim are known to be interesting people. You have to be a sort of interesting kind of guy to want to spend your life with a sharp knife slitting the throats of animals. So the sheikh had said, well, look closely and watch how I do it. Look closely, watch how I do it on a cow. He said the blood came out of the cow like a fire hose. Because you cut the vein and they said, and they all jumped back. They got splattered with blood, all of them, of course. So he's smiling. The sheikh thought this was a great joke. I guess this was his entertainment for the week. These Lubavitcher Bachurim get them all. They said it was unbelievable how it exploded out of the cow. Okay, so that's going on in the Beis Hamikdash. That's Malchus. That's Elam Hazeh Gashmi. That's Malchus. That's the Mizbeach. So the menorah is Chochmah, Chesed, ethereal, spiritual, transcendent light. And the menorah is blood and guts gashmias, mamish. Two completely different expressions of our relationship with the Kadosh Baruch Hu. Veneris for karbonis, the Rebbe says, avodah shainis. They're two completely different levels of avodah. Va'ad, and now the Rebbe brings a beautiful Gemara that it's a medrash. It's quoted in Rashi brings it in Parshas Baloischa at the beginning, right? What does it say? Emphasizing the difference between neres and karbonis. So we'll just read it and then explain the reka, the background of this medrash. Va'ad, it's not in the Gemara, it's in Medrash Tanchuma. Ad sheshelcha, yours, which is going to be neres. Gedoyla mishelahem is greater than theirs, which is karbonis. Ki einim b'teilim leilim, because they're never bottled. They're never nullified. Okay, who is speaking to who? Whom? Who's yours and who's theirs and who's speaking?
Shema.
So, no. Moshe Rabbeinu is speaking to Aaron HaKohen. Why? After the whole story of, at the end of Parshas Nosai, what happens? The the dedication of the Mizbeach in the Mishkan. And what happens? Every tribe brings korbanos, all the same. And that's why Nasai is the longest parsha in the Torah, because at the end of Nasai, we see 12 times exactly the same psukim relative to each of the 12 shvatim, the 12 tribes. Right? And then there's a sachakol of them all the 13th time, adding them all up. So how many cows were brought, how many bullocks were brought, how many sheep were brought, how many goats were, the whole thing. Okay. Aaron a Kohen, Shevet Levi, Kohen. Shevet Levi didn't bring. Right? So Aaron was upset that he didn't have a chelik in the dedication of the Mizbeach, that he missed this amazing event. And Moshe said to him, yours is greater than theirs. What's yours? Lighting the menorah. What's the next pasuk in the Torah after Parshas Nosei? What's the next parsha? Baloischa Esaneres. It talks about lighting the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. That's the next pasuk right after. Now for us, it's the next week, but it's the next pasuk in the Torah. After the whole story of the tribes bringing the korbanos, it then says, and you will light the menorah. That's Aaron. So Moshe says to Aaron, yours is greater than theirs, because yours will never be bottled. Why? Because the Jews are going to be lighting the menorah throughout all of the years of Gullus on Chanukah. We haven't brought a korban for 2,000 years. We've been lighting a menorah every year for the last 2,000 years. So Moshe says to Aaron, yours won't be bottled. Yours is the menorah. So don't feel badly that you missed out on that which happened on the Mizbeach, because you have an Aveda that's a greater Aveda, because it won't ever disappear, and that's the menorah which will be lit throughout Gullus on the holiday of Chanukah. That's what Moshe said to Aaron. Oh, so what do we see very, very clearly? The difference between Mizbeach and menorah also in the Medrash. Yours is greater than theirs. There's two different levels of Aveda. So why is it that we learn how to light the menorah for the Mizbeach? They're two completely different things. That's the fourth question the Rebbe asked. First question was what?
Why do we connect?
Why do we learn
Chanukah
Chanukah from Sukkot? Second question.
What's the connection between the two to the supernatural order of 8?
Right. Why are they both 8? Third question.
Why is it?
Why do you have an 8-branch menorah celebrating a miracle with a 7-branch menorah? Fourth question we just asked. Right. Well, why are you learning how to commemorate a miracle with the menorah from what happened on the Mizbeach? That meaning it's a deeper question of the first question, but it's a fourth question. The fifth question, we don't know yet. Let's see. It's 8:30?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's see the fifth question. We'll stop. I'm sorry. V'gam tzarich lahavin ma shemitzvos shel ner Chanukah hi mishetishka achama. The mitzvah of ner Chanukah is sunset. That's when we light the Chanukah. Diyadu adiyuk b'zeh. The neres hamikdash, when were the neres hamikdash lit? Hidlika b'im plaga mincha. Plaga mincha is, we'll explain it tomorrow, we're not going to explain it now, it's too late. Shah uraviyah kaidem mashkia. An hour and a quarter before sunset. That's when we lit the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash. Okay? That's called plug. Plug means half. We'll explain that tomorrow. Okay, we're not explaining it now. All right? An hour and a quarter. So the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash was lit an hour and a quarter before Shkia. The cave in Neres Chanukah, and since Neres Chanukah came canal, they are, as we said earlier, Mipnei Hanes, because of the miracle Shaya b'Neres Hamikdash that happened with the Neres Hamikdash and the candles in the Beis Hamikdash. Ubefrat, and particularly there's a rule, Shekol the Tikkun Rabanan, everything that the Rabanan established, Ke'ein Deraisa Tikkun, they look for a Torah prototype to establish the rabbinic halacha, rabbinic mitzvah on. So there is a Torah prototype. And what's the Torah prototype about lighting candles an hour and a quarter before Shkia? That's when you light the menorah. And we're celebrating a miracle that happened with the menorah. And there, again, and back to there's also a prototype, how to light a menorah. And so we generally, when Chazal or the rabbis, whoever they happen to be at that moment in history, establish a halacha, they'll look to the Torah for the source of how to do it. Okay, so then when should we light Chanukah Lich? Well, an hour and a quarter before Shkia. Why in the world would we light them any other time? We're celebrating a miracle that happened with candles that were lit an hour and a quarter before Shkia. Hayod ra'ui, the Rebbe says, it's fitting, top line on the second page. Shetia zman hadlakasim, that their time of their lighting should be keneres hamikdash, like we lit the candles in the mikdash. V'lama mitzvasi dafka mishatish kachama, and why is it, the fifth question is the question of time, why is it that we light Chanukah lich dafka at Shkia? 5 questions. Comparison to Sukkot, why they both ate, why are you celebrating a miracle with that happened on a 7-branch menorah and an 8-branch menorah? Why are you learning how to celebrate the miracle of the menorah from what happened on the Mizbeach to completely different things? And time. Okay, those are the 5 questions that we have to answer. Okay, now we're completely confused, so we're in good shape. Okay, the Rebbe's going to answer a couple of those questions very, very quickly. I'm sorry that we went over.
Thank you.
Okay.
You're Rabbi Kaplan.
If there's extra copies on the table and extra